starting December 20th, for the first time ever in the history of college football, we'll have a 12-team playoff. So it used to be at the end, you get, when I grew up, it was AP voted for it. The media voted for the national championship game, which was hokey. And there's BCS and a college playoff. Now, for the first time ever this year, we'll have 12 teams. And so last night, 2 weeks left, they released the playoffs. Now, again, do not overreact. 2 weeks left in my lifetime, college football's last 2 weeks, rivalry week and championship week, anything can happen. I'll give you an example. J-Mac was right yesterday. I'm going to reverse my pick. I'm taking USC plus 7.5 points to keep it close on Notre Dame. Why? Full stadium in L.A. Lincoln Riley's emptying the tank. They got nothing to lose. They feel good after beating UCLA. And Notre Dame's only faced 2 ranked teams since September. Every single USC game is close. The Coliseum, I'll be there, will be lit. They've got playmakers. Notre Dame step up in class. USC beat LSU, and they should have beaten Penn State in overtime at home. To me, it's 27-26, 28-27. Don't be shocked if Notre Dame gets bounced. How about number 2, Texas? For the first time in 13 years, going to College Station to face Texas A&M. What do you think Texas A&M would love to do? How about derail the greatest season for Texas Longhorn football since the Mac Brown days? That place is one of the hardest places to play in the country. Marcel Reed, the quarterback for Texas A&M, the freshman, is good. He's getting better every time we see him. The Aggies' D-line, exceptional. What was the team that beat Texas? Georgia. Their D-line, exceptional. Oh, by the way, the Aggies have nothing to lose. Texas, all the pressure. Keep your eye on that one. Oh, did I mention that Tennessee's at Vandy? Vandy beat Alabama at home. Did I mention Georgia Tech and Georgia? Georgia Tech's a good team. Beat Miami. So everybody freaks out. I can see all the SEC fans. I can't believe where we are ranked. A week ago, just last weekend, Ole Miss, Bama, Colorado, and A&M all lost to unranked opponents. So it's not Thanksgiving, it's Trapsgiving. Watch out for Notre Dame. Watch out for Texas. Watch out for Georgia. People freak out. Don't. This is what's great. For the first time in our lives, we get a 12-team playoff. I just had a coach yesterday tell me he thinks SMU is wildly underrated. Who knows? But my entire life, college football regular season was amazing, and then you'd watch a bunch of second-tier cheesy bowl games. That stuff now, 12-team playoff, can't wait, fired up. I mean, about the only game I don't see an upset is Ohio State hosting Michigan. I don't know how Michigan keeps it close. They're bad at quarterback. They're on the road. They don't have big plays. Ohio State will be more aggressive, playmakers everywhere, better at quarterback. A lot of pressure on Ohio State. That one I don't see an upset. Everything else, I wouldn't be shocked. Now let's bring on the voice of college football at Fox Sports, Joel Klatt, who is doing Michigan at number 2, Ohio State.
What's up, dude? How you doing? Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you. So I don't get too worked up on the 12-team playoff. We've got 2 weeks to go.
Okay. The rankings, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Notre Dame going to USC. They haven't played a ranked team since September. All SC games look the exact same.
No, USC is not nearly built in the fashion to compete with Notre Dame. It's a terrible matchup for USC.
Wow. What about
terrible
Texas A&M?
Bad matchup for Texas A&M. So let's go over both of them. USC, you've got to be tough in the trenches because with Jeremiah Love and this run game, including Riley Leonard, who can run the football a little bit for Notre Dame, you've got to be great stopping the run, which means you've got to have a great defensive line. That's exactly where USC is thin right now. Like they're if they want to win, they would want to get you in space, and they want to just say like, okay, let's equate talent on the outside, and then they've got some weapons. But if you take them into a phone booth and you say, like, hey, let's go play a trenches game, they're not built for that right now. Now, maybe they will be through recruiting and development and things in the future, but not right now. So USC, they're not built to beat this Notre Dame team, even at home. even at home. Meanwhile, in that Texas A&M game, it's similar in the sense that A&M has to be able to run the ball because they don't throw it well.
Yeah, they have a freshman quarterback who's getting better.
He's getting better, but when they don't have Le'Veon Moss on the field, they run the ball for under 4 yards a carry last week against Auburn, and they can't throw it very well. So it's like, okay, well, wait. So you mean to tell me your offense is stagnated because your running back is out, and now you've got to face Texas, which has a great pass defense with Jahdae Barron, who's a Thorpe Award finalist, Makuba, who transferred in from Clemson. I just don't see how A&M is able to score a lot of points against this Texas defense that, frankly, is one of the better defenses in all of college football.
I feel the same way with Michigan. If you're going to beat Ohio State, you got to have to score. Oregon did it. Indiana tried. I don't think Michigan has the firepower, do they?
Yeah, they finally had it last week. Did you see? They scored 50 against Northwestern. Now, granted, that's Northwestern, so I'm not saying that all of a sudden their offense has arrived, but their offense is better now than it was early in the season. But I agree with you. I don't get the sense. Here's the thing about Ohio State. So Ohio State just has answers. Whatever type of game you want to drag them into, they probably feel like they can win that game.
Yeah.
And that's not the case with every team.
Yeah.
They feel like they could probably go win a talent-equated game just throwing the ball with their wide receivers and Will Howard. They probably feel like with their run game, even with the banged-up offensive line, but when you have Travion Henderson and Quinshad Judkins, you feel like you can go win a running game like they did with Penn State, and they finished the game on the field grinding out first downs in a 4-minute offense. They feel like they can go out there and win a defensive-oriented game. They're the number one ranked defense, both total and scoring defense in the country. They've done it both rushing the passer and sitting back and playing zone. So, like, all of a sudden you look at this team, and there's an incredible amount of balance and answers. Regardless of what you ask of them, they can at least provide an answer. And I think that's a big credit to Ryan Day and the way that he built this roster and this team. But Michigan doesn't have that this year.
Yeah.
They did last year.
Yeah.
And they had answers against Penn State. But now without J.J. McCarthy, it's like, what are you on third down?
Yeah.
Like J.J. McCarthy, the reason he was a top 10 pick is because of what he did on third down. He was the number one quarterback in the country on third down. He kept him on the field. He protected the defense. He won the time of possession. Those extra first downs turned into great field position. And now when you don't have that, it's like, okay, now the defense is more exposed. You don't have the field position, and you're not getting the ball down the field. So Michigan's going to have to pull a bit of a rabbit out of their hat in this one, and they're going to have to do so in the same physical fashion that they did the previous 3 iterations of this when they won the game. Speaking of cold weather, you were just talking about cold weather. It's supposed to be like mid-20s and windy. So it could be a game in which you got to run the football 50 times. Do you trust Michigan's offensive line this year to run the ball 50 times against Ohio State?
No, that's not. Their D-line's great.
D-line's great.
2 top 12 draft picks on the D-line and a great corner, Will Johnson.
I know, and it's been a bummer. Will Johnson has been out basically the back half of the year. So they've had to move their nickel Zeke Berry out of the outside, and he plays corner. I hope Will is healthy and gets healthy because he's a terrific player.
So I was a little reality check for SEC Fanboy yesterday on this show. I said, when you stole Texas and Oklahoma from the Big 12, you're like, that's what we do. The downside is Alabama now doesn't get Middle Tennessee State. They had to go to Norman, and they got humiliated.
Yeah.
And I don't have any sympathy for, we play a tougher schedule.
Well, I mean, sorry. I bristle because, they don't play 9 conference games.
They play 8.
Oregon had to play 8 consecutive weeks of Big Ten play. No SEC team comes close to that. Now, I'm not saying that Georgia's schedule has been easy or Alabama's schedule has been easy. The top of the SEC is terrific. It really is. The problem is that you lose me and you lose the benefit of the doubt when you start losing to 5-loss Oklahoma and 7-loss Kentucky.
It wasn't that Alabama lost to Oklahoma.
They got smashed.
They weren't competitive.
Correct. Absolutely correct. And that's a problem. And that's a problem. And now people are like, well, what's the path for Alabama into the playoff? No path? I mean, I know the committee kind of...
You can't let Bama in.
I don't think so.
You can't let Bama in.
I don't think so.
It's over. It's over.
With some chaos, I think they would get consideration.
I'll let you lose to a big dog, and I'll give you a mulligan. Vandy was the mulligan.
Sure.
You don't get a second mulligan with a 12-team playoff.
No, listen, I agree with you. I mean, you lost a tough game at Tennessee.
I'll give you that.
That's a good game.
I'll give you that.
A really good team.
And I'll give you Mulligan.
And Vandy on the road, you're like, okay, there's your Mulligan.
Vandy's pretty good this year.
You cannot go to OU, by the way, in their previous 6 games against the FBS, they were 1-5.
Yeah.
And they got their doors blown off. So that's my frustration with all this. And then to see them sitting there at 13
now.
The committee has such a clear bias towards the SEC and have forever, which is I know that's kind of baked in, but it's real. Meanwhile, Indiana gets ranked behind SMU. Indiana's got a tougher strength of schedule. Their loss was to the number one defense in the country in Ohio State on the road. Meanwhile, SMU lost to BYU. They've got a 5-point win over Nevada. Come on, what are we doing? The college football playoff system is just so flawed, and at the heart of the flaw is this committee that the committee has no rationale for the things that they do. They take the path of least resistance, generally speaking, even though they didn't do that last year, and they give us these rankings you cannot tell me that Indiana should be ranked behind SMU. That's not a thing.
Yeah. I will say this about Indiana. Is it didn't bother me when Will Howard did the SIG thing for Kurt Cignetti, the coach. I thought Indiana came in a little hot, a little cocky for my taste.
Yeah.
I am a man of a humble servant to American listeners.
Yes, clearly.
I didn't like their attitude. They were a little much for me. And I think Ohio State said, you're Indiana, chill pill, good season.
There's no doubt that the approach that Kurt Cignetti has taken,
very aggressive.
It's been very aggressive.
Yeah.
And I want to touch on both sides of this, if you don't mind. But
sure.
There's no doubt that there was a lot of folks at Ohio State that were like, come get some.
Yeah.
Let's go.
This is a big boy
this
table.
This is where we live.
Yeah.
You've been dreaming of getting here and you think you're breathing this rarefied air. No. We live this 365 days a year.
Yeah.
And there was definitely that feeling. Now, having said that, if you're Kurt Cignetti and you take the job at Indiana and you go there and you walk around the campus and you walk around the building and you get this sense that hey, everyone's just excited for nothing. There's no energy towards success. It's always well, how are you going to do it here? You really think you can win here? And to him,
so he wants to build something.
He's
up.
I have to rattle the cage here. And while he's rattling the cage at Indiana, trying to communicate this hey, guess what? Purdue sucks and Michigan does too, and Ohio State does too. And he's saying all these outlandish things. You have to understand, he's not doing that to try to communicate to Purdue or to Michigan or to Ohio State or any other fan base. He's doing that for his own fan base and for his own program. And he and I have talked about that. He's listen, I would have handled this a lot differently if this was a different place. But I had to rattle the cage hard here at Indiana to try to shake loose some sort of belief that we could actually do this and we could do it in a quick fashion.
Well, Barry Alvarez did that, 30, 40 years ago at Wisconsin. Did you ever hear the story about Barry Alvarez? So he came into Wisconsin, and everybody said, oh, boy, our facilities need an upgrade. He goes, I love them.
Yeah.
Be proud of these facilities at Wisconsin. These are great facilities. We're not changing a damn thing. Great. Camp Randall's great. And
by the way, Deion did that at Colorado.
He did?
When he got the job at Colorado, everyone was saying well, how are you going to recruit in the middle of the country? And, oh, man, Colorado's been down and destitute for 2 decades. What are you doing? Why did you take that job? And he came in and he was like, look at this place. Look at this place. This place is great. And he immediately built it up to something that maybe the people that were there didn't even see. And that's what Cignetti was doing. And Deion drew a lot of ire for that early last year in his first year. And now Cignetti has drawn a lot of ire for that in his first year at Indiana.
All right. I know that you're cozy with some of these big name coaches. So I'm going to put you in a tough spot. Okay. Klatt.
Oh.
Okay. So I said,
let's hear it.
So Ohio State and Ryan Day's in a weird spot. Everybody's he's got to beat Michigan. The problem is when he does, he's not going to get any credit.
Yeah.
You're Harbaugh's got. And then he beats Oregon. You'll be we got better players, and they already beat us, so revenge is hard. He won't get any credit for that, even though Oregon may be the best team in the country. It's weird. If he beats Michigan and Oregon, and beating Oregon anywhere is hard, and then he goes and plays Tennessee, and he loses his first game when they spent $20 million, people are going to be like,
oh, they'll be all over him.
They're the only team in this tournament. There is only one result. They'll be allowed to lose in overtime to Texas in the Natty.
Maybe.
35-34, bad officiating call. Ohio State's the only team that the coach, many will subscribe to. We got the wrong coach unless he gets to the Natty.
Listen, I agree with this, and Ryan is a ridiculously successful coach.
His record, timeout. His record is 66-9.
It's wild. It's wild. He's got the highest winning percentage of any coach with over 60 games. And he has remade this program and built it into something that has answers. Like, this is a different team this year than they've had over the last 3 years. Yeah. And by the way, so him stepping away from play calling duties, that was a huge step for him.
Sure.
Because he's one of the elite play callers in college football.
Lane Kiffin struggled with that.
He steps away from play calling duties. But look what it has provided them. Look at this, Colin. Check this out. So this year, you go into this year with Chip Kelly calling the offensive plays and Jim Knowles on the defensive side. And they're going through the year, and everything's hunky-dory, and then, bam, you lose at Oregon. And now, again, the sky is falling because at Ohio State, you can't have one bad day. You can't have one bad quarter.
They didn't even have a bad day.
No, they get a flag thrown. And was it right? I don't know. They lose the game by a point at Oregon. And the sky is falling because it's Ohio State, and you can't lose a game at Ohio State. But what did he do? Because he made the decision to be a CEO, he was able to go in and look in at the defense and say, what do we need to change in this defense? He was able to do that with his offense and what do we need to do with the offensive line lineup in order to make us better? So now when you look at their team from the Oregon loss on defense, they've changed a little bit and evolved. The previous 3 years, his team was never able to evolve because he was so integrated in the offensive side. So the defense never got extra eyes on them. The offense never got extra eyes on them. Now he's a true CEO. And so Chip gets extra eyes on the offense. What can we do in the run game? What should we do with the offensive line? Jim Knowles gets extra eyes on the defense. What should we do with the pass rush? Why did we not get to Dylan Gabriel, but now we're getting to Curtis Rourke? Because they changed and evolved. Rather than a straight four-man rush, they started to bring the extra man in a blitz. They started to slant. They started to stunt. They started to do these things that has allowed them to have success, and that only happens if he evolved as a coach himself, stepped away from play-calling duties, and became more of a CEO. It's not a story that's often told, but that's what you need to do. By the way, guys that call their own plays don't win the national championship.
Yeah, you got to give it up.
The last guy, I think, was Jimbo for Florida State. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And so you're right about the standard and him going into this. And then the last point that I would make, this playoff format, and we should be,
I like it.
I get it. But
I don't need another bowl game in Shreveport. I like it.
No, that's fine. I'm not saying that the playoff in general. I'm just think about the format, though. When you give the top 4 seeds just to conference champions, that means that the 4 seed is likely going to be the 10th or 11th best team in the country.
True.
Which means that there is actually a cleaner path for the 5 seed than there is the 1 seed. Which means if you're in the Big Ten championship game, do you want to win it or do you want to lose it?
Well,
because the 5 seed, in this case, plays a home game against Arizona State and then a second-round game against Boise. The 1 seed, what do you get for winning the Big Ten championship? Possibly Georgia as your first playoff game. So what would you rather, you answer this, what would you rather do? Play 2 games, one against Arizona State, one against Boise, or 1 neutral site game against Georgia?
Yeah, it's not perfect. It's better than what we had, but it's not perfect.
I mean, they should reseed after the first round. I mean, it's so obviously clear.
What's wrong with that?
I mean, it's a good idea. They're not doing that, though. There's no shot.
Well, I know they're not. I'm just saying that they should.
Yeah.
Don't we reseed in the NFL? Doesn't the
Crickets
the number one team? If you get the bye,
yeah, they do.
You play the worst remaining team.
Yeah.
Well, that's absolutely what. If we want to honor the regular season, but again, we have the same people. It's the same individuals that gave us like the Bull Coalition, and then the Alliance, and then the BCS, and then the original playoff, and now this 12-team playoff. And it's like they've never gotten it right. Why did we allow the same people to build this? The format's wrong.
I don't disagree with you. Now, again, I'm going to ask you an uncomfortable question.
On Thanksgiving week?
How do we view it? To Deion Sanders' credit, he acknowledged we were buying our own media.
Yeah, they were terrible last week.
Kansas, by the way, is well coached, so give the Jayhawks credit. They have a football program now that's redeemable, and they didn't forever. But let's be honest. How do we look at Colorado? Are they just interesting, and we'll leave it at that? They're not great. But they're an interesting part of the sport, and that's just what they're going to be. You think he stays there for sure? Are you sure?
No, I'm not sure.
Thank you.
He told me he was.
Well,
but I mean, with coaches, like I don't know.
I mean, I bumped your segment 2 weeks ago, but you never know. Loyalty's a hard thing.
That's right. You did. You did. There was a lot of questions in there. How do I view this, even if they don't go to the Big 12 championship game? Like if they beat Oklahoma State but don't get into the Big 12 championship game.
I just think they're a great new fun story in college football. They're not elite. They're fun. They're new. I like them.
Colorado has fundamentally changed college football.
Well, what do you mean by that?
They provided a blueprint for how to quickly turn around an organization and a program
through the NIL
that was totally dormant.
Yeah.
And so Indiana used that with 27 transfers.
Yeah.
And so now in college football, not only is there an expanded playoff and there's an expanded avenue towards the playoff, but you've also got different ways that you can go and actually be successful. Deion showed to the rest of the country that with some charisma and investment, you can go out there and find requisite players at the lower levels of football and bring them in and win right away. And in a short 2-year span, they're going to be an 8 or 9 win team, possibly play for a Big 12 title. That was never afforded a team that was 1-11. It was a 3, 4, 5 year process for a 1-11 team to actually change. So then all of a sudden, Indiana's like, well, hey, we can do that. Let's go get a guy like Kirk Cignetti and bring him up from the lower levels. And he brings all of his JMU guys. Colorado laid the blueprint for what Indiana is doing this year, and more teams are going to follow it. More teams will do this, and that's good for the sport because what we've had is like a cycle of elitism where the same 5 and 6 teams win every single year. Why? Because they get the best players. It's not like the NFL where the worst team gets the best player. Here, the best team gets the best player because they had this monopoly over the avenue to success. That's no longer the case, and part of that avenue was paved by Deion Sanders. So he has fundamentally changed college football forever.
You said 2 weeks ago you would not be bitter if he went to the NFL. You would appreciate what he delivered, and I agree with that. But today, Shedeur goes number 1. There's about 7 teams going to replace their coach. Are you 50-50, stay or go? What do you think? What's your gut feeling?
I think it would be really hard for him to turn down the New York Giants or the Dallas Cowboys.
Okay.
Those brands. Okay. Now, here's what I will say, though, is that, and I've made this it's not really an argument. I've made this point before, and I think that it remains truer today than ever, which is as much as Colorado was desperate for Deion Sanders needs a place like Colorado. Colorado turned over the keys. Deion could be totally himself and turn Colorado into prime. He had the keys to the castle. Traditions were out the window. You can do whatever you want. He had clauses contractually where he could keep his merchandise and wear the sunglasses and do all of the things that make Deion and allow him to mentor young men at the college level, which I know he feels like is his calling. Go to the NFL and see if you get all of those. Go to the NFL and see if you can do all of that. Like he would be so restricted in the NFL that he couldn't even, I don't think, be himself. You know, like Kyle Shanahan gets reprimanded for wearing the wrong flat bill hat. Much less, like Deion, do you think you can wear your shades out there and all of it? I think Deion Sanders is a great fit at Colorado. Yeah. Granted, I'm a Colorado guy. So I understand that I have a dog in the hunt here, in the fight. But saying that, just think about it for a moment, and it's like Deion works at Colorado not only because of Deion, but because of Colorado.
You know, you and I legally can give money to a collective and help a program.
It's true. Do you?
I buy the long snapper at Cal Poly. Some guys are out there buying Michigan quarterbacks. I'm out there. I'm not giving.
That's what I
money.
heard. Yeah. That's what I heard.
And controls the ATM. I don't get it. I don't even get a card.
I did hear that.
Yeah.
I can't wait for April when the House settlement actually goes through, because then every team will be more on the equal footing as far as the revenue that they can share.
I'm not a big equal footing guy. I'm glad you are. No, equal footing. Hey,
so you would rather just like what? You explain it to me. You're a coastal elite.
No,
I've got it. Yeah, that's what it is.
That's not what it is.
No, it is. No, that's okay. You don't have to explain. We got it.
You know
No, we got it. On a week of Thanksgiving, when you're all cozy in your homes in the middle of the country, suffering that cold weather. Remember, Colin Cowherd thinks San Francisco is cold weather.
Yeah. Hey, you know what the first part of that elitist is?
Coastal?
Elite. I guess I'm elite.
Well,
like
listen,
Michael Jordan and Mahomes.
If the shoe fits, wear it. If the shirt fits you, Colin, wear it. You know, like.
I'm not going to let you marginalize me.
I'm not trying to. I'm building you up.
You know,
as you said yourself, the first part of elitism is elite.
That's right. Thank you.
You bet.
That felt great.
It did, didn't it?
Kind of.